Shocking reveal. The dirty tricks Richard Branson used to crush British Airways forever. In the cutthroat world of aviation, a storm brewed. Richard Branson, the flamboyant billionaire with wild curls and a cheeky grin, stood at the helm, ready to shake things up. His nemesis? The stiff, buttoned-up British Airways. It was like watching a thrilling David versus Goliath battle unfold in the skies. Whispers swirled like dark smoke through the industry, rumors of secret tactics, deceitful moves, and war room strategies that would leave British Airways gasping for air. What could possibly drive a man to gamble his empire? Branson's passion for adventure was infectious, but the stakes were higher than anyone could have imagined. He didn't just want to compete. He aimed to obliterate British Airways, sending shockwaves through their carefully polished image. A plan that got chills creeping up the spines of their boardroom members. Pictures flooded the media. Branson grinning beside his sleek Virgin Atlantic planes, a giant smirk plastered on his face, as if he held all the cards. And then there were the instances, the strange coincidences that would make anyone raise an eyebrow. Why was it that British Airways flights were delayed just as Virgin Atlantic launched a new route? Could it all be coincidence? Or was there something sinister lurking beneath the surface? Emails went missing, glitches emerged in their booking systems. Things people couldn't explain as the clock ticked on. Tension filled the air. It was as if everyone was holding their breath, quietly observing, waiting for something to snap. What was Branson really up to? Who were the invisible hands pulling strings behind the scenes? It was like watching a magician perform a trick, but just when you think you see the rabbit coming out of the hat, he pulls out a surprising twist instead. Amidst this chaos, curiosity pulsed through the air like electricity. It was hard not to feel a sudden rush of thrill. What would happen next? The stakes were rising, and the stage was set for a showdown like no other. Would British Airways maintain their stronghold, or would Branson's calculated risks ultimately send them crashing to the ground? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With each passing day, the rivalry intensified, the skirmishes grew bolder, and the dark undercurrents rippled further below the surface. Flying high was no longer just about the skies. It was about loyalty tested, and secrets waiting to be uncovered. Just who was winning this battle of wills, and what hidden truths lay waiting in the shadows, ready to be revealed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the bustling airport, a sense of foreboding loomed over British Airways. Inside their headquarters, executives huddled around a massive table, faces etched with worry. Every delay on their routes felt like another victory for Branson. If they didn't act soon, they risked losing everything they had worked for. Every day we sit here, we give him more room to play, barked Sarah, the head of operations, her voice a whirlwind of anger and frustration. She slammed her hand on the table, causing coffee cups to rattle. We need to expose him for what he really is. If we don't know his tactics, we can't counter them. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, but it was the ominous silence that followed that chilled them to the bone. Weighing their options felt like clutching a hand grenade with the pin pulled. How far could they push back? Branson was a survivor, a maverick who thrived on chaos. In a dimly lit corner of Virgin Atlantic's headquarters, Branson was the picture of reckless confidence. He burst into laughter while reviewing another report of ominous delays in British Airways flight schedules. Let them tighten their ties, he roared. I'm rewriting the rules of the game. But beneath that bravado, a gnawing doubt sat heavy in his chest. Whispered rumors of backdoor deals and leaks had reached his ears. His rivals were regrouping, and he could feel the tide shifting. The next day, Branson gathered his closest allies in a secret meeting. The air was thick with tension and anticipation. There's more at stake here than just business. We're talking about rewriting the aviation industry's playbook, he said, leaning in, eyes sparkling with mischief. But I need something extra, something unexpected. Suddenly, a young analyst named Max chimed in. excitement bubbling in his voice as he shared a plan that felt audacious, yet brilliant, a strategy to shake the very foundations of British Airways. What if we launch an aggressive advertising campaign? But not just regular ads. We tap into social media, show the world the true spirit of Virgin, pull back the curtain on their delays, on their hidden tricks, expose their dirty laundry. The room erupted with cheers. Branson's smile widened, but he knew this wasn't just about flashy ads. His ideals weren't just to soar high, but to drag the competition into the mud. Could this really turn the tides? As the campaign rolled out, news channels buzzed with the latest gossip. Virgin Atlantic raises accusations against British Airways. Allegations of concealed scheduling mishaps. The online uproar was instant, drawing thousands of people into the fray, uniting them against the stuffy airline. Yet, lurking beneath that sudden wave of support and enthusiasm, a storm brewed. People began to notice things, odd social media accounts popping up, spreading misinformation about Branson's campaign. Who was behind this shadowy operation? Was British Airways fighting back in secret? Branson's pulse raced as he looked at the growing chaos. The thrill of the game surged through him, but so did a whisper of unease. Something wasn't right, and just as he decided to dig deeper, a commotion erupted in the office. He rushed out to see his assistant looking frantic, eyes wide with disbelief. "Richard, there's an urgent situation. You've got to see this. It's unbelievable." With dread pooling in the pit of his stomach, Branson followed her. What awaited him could change everything, a revelation that would either crown him as king of the skies or send him plummeting down to earth. What shocking twist lay ahead? Was someone ready to reveal the secrets that could topple his empire? The moment Branson entered the room, the air felt charged with electricity. His assistant, Julia, pointed at the screen with trembling hands. The image illuminated their faces, a screenshot of a private conversation, clearly belonging to British Airways upper management, discussing tactics to undermine Virgin. His heart raced. This was more than just gossip, it was deep, personal betrayal. "Where did you get this?" Branson demanded, his voice low and intense. "I can't say it's completely verified, but it's been making the rounds on some insider forums." "I thought you should see it," Julia stammered, her eyes darting back to the screen. "Take a closer look. They're discussing dirty tactics, planting misinformation about our delays, maybe even worse." She continued, her voice a mix of fear and excitement. As Branson leaned in, the room became silent around him, the gravity of the moment weighing heavy. He could feel the pulse in his temples throb with every heartbeat. He knew British Airways was capable of playing dirty, but this was war. "Prepare to disseminate this information immediately," Branson ordered sharply. "We need our people on the offensive. This isn't just about winning clients anymore, this is survival." The tension shifted. Excitement intertwined with dread, flowing through the crew. They began brainstorming messages to counteract the smear campaign, ready to twist their rivals' own tactics back on them. But underneath it all, an icy fear lingered. Who else was involved? And how deep did this well of treachery run? Meanwhile, at British Airways headquarters, Sarah sat glued to her screen, recognizing the urgency in her colleagues' voices as they reviewed their social media strategy. "They know what we're up to," she realized, feeling a shiver slide down her spine. "We need to draw our line in the sand before they strike. We have to deflect Branson's assault. This isn't just a marketing battle anymore. It's a siege." Whispers of discontent filled the room as her team debated their next move. Loyalty was flickering like a candle in the wind. Was the truth worth their careers? Was everyone around her on board with their underhanded tactics? Sarah's instincts screamed for caution. Suddenly, her phone buzzed on the table, jolting the group. A message flashed, an insider tip warning of an impending leak about their ongoing operations. What if this is just the beginning? She pondered, a lump forming in her throat. What if someone wants to bring us down just as much? As speculation roiled and tensions heightened, both factions began to take drastic steps to protect themselves. The lines had blurred. This was no longer just business, it was personal. Hours passed, and soon the digital battlefield erupted. Reports flooded in outrage, shock, and confusion across Twitter and media outlets. It spiraled into chaos as both airlines squabbled, their reputations hanging by a thread. Bloggers speculated who would come out on top, and the public was hungry for more. Branson felt a surge of adrenaline. As he watched the online storm unfold, he couldn't shake off the gnawing feeling that something more sinister was lurking behind the scenes. The game was transforming, evolving into a multi-front war he hadn't anticipated. Just as he began to formulate a plan, the door burst open. A shadowy figure stepped in, face obscured, urgency radiating off them. "Richard, there's something you need to see, something that could change everything. They're planning something big, and it's directed straight at you." Branson stiffened, pulse racing, anticipating the storm that was brewing. What could this new threat reveal? And were his rivals preparing to strike a blow that would either shatter his hopes or claim his throne? The stakes were already high, but now they could become deadly. Branson's heart raced as he took a step toward the shadowy figure. "Who the hell are you?" His voice carried an edge of authority mixed with uncertainty. He had faced many challenges in his career, but this felt different, threatening. The figure pulled back the hood of their rain-soaked jacket, revealing a familiar face, Evan, a longtime rival, now turned whistleblower. "We're not alone in this fight, Richard," Evan said, urgency crackling in his voice. "They're regrouping, and what they're planning could shake the entire industry. You need to sit down. Now." Branson motioned to Julia, who hurriedly closed the laptop on the desk, the angry tweets and damaging headlines vanishing from sight. The room was heavy with tension, each person bracing for the next word. "Speak," Branson commanded, eyes intense. He had no time for niceties. Evan took a deep breath, clearly weighing his words. "I've got intel that British Airways is assembling a hit squad, not just marketing, but an actual operational strike to sabotage your fleet. There are whispers of diversions, delays, even accidents." "It's extreme, Branson. They want to ruin you." "Accidents?" Julia echoed, her voice a ragged whisper. The implications hung thick in the air. This was not just chess anymore. It was a gamble with lives on the line. "Yes," Evan continued, looking each of them in the eye, his gaze serious. "And they think they can just play puppet master without consequence. Someone inside has gone rogue. They're leaking information on both sides, and if you don't act fast, it'll lead to chaos." Branson felt an icy grip around his chest. Chaos was something he could handle in the boardroom, but not with people's lives at stake. "So what's the plan?" he asked, adrenaline flooding his veins. "We need to counteract fast. I've already lined up some solid contacts who are willing to help. Media, legal, they're all in. But you need to take decisive action. We must make it clear that any violence against Virgin will not be tolerated." "Violence?" A chill swept over Branson. He looked at Julia, who was staring back wide-eyed, her hands trembling. "We're an airline, not a military operation. We can't stoop to their level. But what choice do you have?" Evan pressed. "Are you honestly willing to let them take your empire just to keep your hands clean? This isn't charity, Richard, it's survival." The weight of the moment crashed down on Branson. His instinct screamed for caution, for dignity. But he felt something darker pooling inside him, an urgency. The battle was shifting, and the stakes were morphing into something unfathomable. "Make the calls," he finally said, his voice steady. "We can't wait for them to strike first. Let us get ahead of this, whatever it takes." Julia nodded, pulling out her phone, her fingers moving with hesitant determination. The air felt electric again, ripe with impending action. At British Airways headquarters, Sarah clenched her jaw. "They're not going to get away with this," she hissed, gleaning every ounce of strength from within. Her team was in disarray, loyalty bleeding out like a bad wound. They had to act swiftly. Just as they were about to consider their countermove, the screen flashed a notification. A new leak had emerged. "No way," Sarah breathed, aghast. Could this get any worse? The tension was thick. People whispered amongst themselves, their faces paled. As she clicked on the notification, her stomach dropped. The headline screamed betrayal, naming top British Airways executives and their hidden agendas. "They're turning on each other," she exclaimed. "Which means we're not the only ones in danger," her colleague murmured. "They'll come for us as well." The clock was ticking, and both sides were teetering on the precipice of destruction. Branson's sharpened resolve clashed with Sarah's rising panic, each moment leading them closer to an explosive confrontation neither side could afford to lose. What surprises lay ahead? Who would be the first to strike? The stakes had never been higher, and neither rival was ready to back down. As the curtain rose on chaos, the real battle had only just begun. Evan's breath hung in the air, thickening the atmosphere as Branson stared him down, every muscle in his body coiled like a spring ready to snap. What exactly are we dealing with? He asked, his voice losing its edge, replaced by a sharp edge of urgency. Right now, they're on the edge of panic, Evan said, his brow furrowed. The leaks have sent ripples through their ranks. If we strike at the right moment, we can exploit that weakness. But you need to be decisive. Branson weighed his options. Time pushed against them with a relentless tick. How? He asked. What is the first move? First, we need to go public with our own intel. Show them you're not exempt from the options on the table. A strong counteroffensive through media can shift the narrative. I can leverage some contacts, but it starts with you, Richard. You need to own this. Julia's fingers drummed nervously on the desk, anxiety flashing in her eyes. But if we go back public, that escalate things with them? They might retaliate before we're ready. That's the point, Evan insisted, frustration creeping into his tone. You need to show them you stand for this. Make them think twice about their next move. Branson's mind raced with uncertainties, weighing the safety of his operations against the potential for explosive outcomes. All right, let us prepare a statement, set up a press conference for tomorrow morning. Julia shot him a look of alarm. Are you sure? What if they retaliate with violence? You're risking everything. I'm risking everything by waiting, Branson replied, stealing his resolve. We don't have time to play nice anymore. Meanwhile, across the city at British Airways headquarters, Sarah sat glued to her screen, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The news leaked like wildfire, fueling paranoia among her colleagues. She had to act. We need to respond, and right now. People will talk. We can't show weakness. Her team gathered, eyes wide, filled with fear and uncertainty. What if Branson decides to expose what he has? One of her team members asked, his voice laced with dread. Will that blow our cover? Taking a deep breath, Sarah straightened. It doesn't matter. If he does, we tackle it head on. We have to reclaim our narrative. I want a counter-statement ready, something strong, no ambiguity. Let them know we're not afraid to fight back. But as they scrambled to prepare, a new notification flashed on Sarah's screen. The latest headline read, Branson's dirty secrets exposed. Insider reveals true intent. Her heart raced in horror as she clicked it open. Are they serious? She gasped. The article rattled off a series of fabricated scandals meant to tarnish Branson's image. It was a smear tactic to draw fire away from their own vulnerabilities. This is madness. She knew they were sinking further into the mud. But just as the chaos began to swirl, an unexpected knock on the door sent chills down her spine. A shadow had fallen over them, and dread oozed from the threshold. Did anyone call for backup? Came a voice from behind the door, gruff and confident. Before Sarah could respond, the door swung open, revealing a welcoming but armed presence. The ominous silhouette clearly had intentions of tilting the tides. We can help. If you're willing to play dirty, the newcomer offered, eyes glinting with a predatory focus. As the heaviness of the moment pressed down, Sarah felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. Who were these outsiders? Allies or enemies? And what would it all cost her in the end? With tension thick as fog, questions loomed. What edge did they bring? And could Sarah's resolve withstand the rising storm? The clock was ticking, and uncertainty was becoming a familiar companion. As she pondered what choice to make next, her fingers trembled over a phone that could seal their fate or shatter it. Would this alliance lead to salvation or more chaos? The answer hung tantalizingly out of reach, ready to shatter everything they thought they knew. The air was electric as Sarah's heart pounded, echoing the tension in the room. The intruder's shadow loomed larger, puffs of uncertainty curling at her throat. She glanced at her team, faces pale and transfixed. This was no ordinary visitor. He was a storm dressed as an ally. Who are you? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. She couldn't show fear. Not now. Name's Cole, he replied, stepping fully into the light. He was rugged, eyes sharp and calculating. I'm here to help tilt the balance in your favor. You're clearly in over your head, and I can provide the muscle you need. That's quite a claim, Sarah said, crossing her arms, trying to remain nonchalant. Why should I trust you? Because right now, you don't have run-of-the-mill options. You're on the brink of losing everything. Branson isn't just bluffing anymore. Cole leaned in, his voice low and persuasive. I've got connections. Resources. We can start turning the tide, but you need to be willing to get your hands dirty. The words hung in the air, pregnant with danger. Sarah's instinct screamed at her to walk away, yet a part of her was drawn to the possibility this man represented. Branson might be playing checkers, but this was chess, and she needed a strategist not afraid to sacrifice pieces for the greater good. Let me call Branson, she finally said, knowing this could change everything. I can't make decisions without him. Suit yourself, Cole shrugged nonchalantly, but his eyes glimmered with impatience. However, time isn't on our side. While you're waiting, I suggest you prepare for things to get ugly. With every tick of the wall clock, the weight of decision pressed further into her mind. The phone felt heavier than usual in her hand as she dialed Branson's number, her heart pounding wildly. Each ring felt like an eternity, stretching her nerves thinner. Branson, he answered, a sound of resolve in his voice. What is going on? There's someone here, Cole. He says he can help us counter what your enemies are brewing. She started, choosing her words carefully. But he is suggesting a more aggressive approach. Sarah, be careful. They might not be there to help, Branson cautioned. What is his angle? She relayed the brief exchange, testing the waters of Branson's patience. She focused hard on analysis, balancing vulnerability with ambition. He is proposing a counterstrike that could change the narrative, but it'll come at a cost. A long pause dragged on the other end, tension brewing like a storm cloud ready to burst. We don't have any room for missteps. If he wants to play dirty, we need to be ready to go all in. Get intel from him. Secure a meeting with our legal team to cover all bases. Sarah swallowed hard, knowing the stakes were now higher than ever. I'll do it. But Branson, we might end up in a deeper mess. The line went silent for a beat before he replied, better deep in a mess than caught off guard. Move quickly. Time is everything. As she hung up the phone, uncertainty tangled with courage, and an adrenaline rush surged through her. Cole's raw intensity glimmered in the corner as she turned back to him, her mind racing with calculated risks. Let us make a plan, she said, surprising even herself with the confidence in her tone. Cole smirked, eyes brightening. Now we're talking. Across the city, Branson stood at his desk, tension etched into his features as he mulled over the decision that lay before him. The media could turn into a weapon, but what if it detonated in his hands? As the sun dipped below the horizon, shadows merged with darkness around him, and the battle lines blurred. Would this strategy lead to victory or utterly ruin? Both sides teetered on the edge, and neither could afford the luxury of hesitation anymore. In that moment, a visceral understanding sunk in. Every choice counted. The players were all ready to sacrifice their pieces, but who would emerge unscathed as the dust settled? The air vibrated with uncertainty. The coming storm was a promise that danger loomed. Would they stoke the flames or extinguish them once and for all? Cole leaned against the table, his intensity filling the room like smoke from a fire waiting to ignite. All right, Sarah, he said, his voice edged with urgency. First, we need the dirt. I mean, everything you have on Branson's competitors. Any weaknesses we can exploit. Sarah nodded, pulling up files on her laptop. Panic simmered under her skin, a discordant symphony of adrenaline and uncertainty. Her fingers danced on the keys, the click-clack underscoring her heartbeat. The screen flickered to life, illuminating documents packed with strategy sketches and intricate plans. This is a gold mine, he said, scanning through the data. Branson isn't the only player in this game. There's blood in the water with British Airways. They're ripe for the picking. Is that the kind of aggression you're talking about? Sarah questioned as unease twisted in her gut. She wasn't naive enough to believe this deal was anything but risky. Cole's gaze sharpened, the room growing thick with tension. This is war, Sarah. If you want to survive, we can't play nice anymore. We hit their supply, drop their stocks, and watch them crumble. Be the predator, not the prey. Her breath caught in her throat, a lump of uncertainty. Was she really ready to step this far into the abyss? Yet, the weight of her situation rendered no other option feasible. What do I need to do? Gather intel on their recent deals, recent contracts, and most importantly, their logistics. We'll uncover any buried secrets they're hiding. You give me the data, and I'll orchestrate the rest. The path ahead was murky, But the fire in Cole's eyes ignited a flicker of determination in her chest. She took a deep breath, letting the urgency push her forward. "Let us do it," she finally said, her resolve fortifying. Meanwhile, across the city, Branson's mind raced. His office felt closed in, walls creeping in as dread coiled tighter around him. He had to tread lightly. One misstep would send everything crashing down. He picked up the phone, running his thumb along the cool surface. "Give me a meeting with the legal team. We need to strategize and anticipate every possible move by Sarah and Cole." A grunt answered him. "Right away, sir." He hung up, fingers pressing against his temples. No one could afford to fall apart now. He needed commitment from his team, and above all, he needed to shield them from the storm Sarah was about to unleash. But something gnawed at him, a niggling thought that this battle wasn't about them anymore. It was about survival in a ruthless game that left no room for mercy. Back in the meeting room, Sarah feverishly tapped at her laptop, gathering intel with desperate speed. As she pieced information together, a sudden instinct made her pause. A file labeled Confidential Risk Management caught her eye. This could be it, she muttered, her heart racing. She clicked to open it, but as the document loaded, the room plunged into darkness. "What just happened?" Cole snapped, scanning the shadows in confusion. "Power outage," she replied, anxiety tightening her throat. Outside, thunder rumbled ominously, and rain began to hammer the windows, a torrential deluge mirroring the chaos brewing inside. Flickering candlelight painted ghostly shadows against the walls, adding to the eeriness of their precarious situation. The silence was dangerously heavy, broken only by the storm outside and the quickened breaths of both Cole and Sarah. The vulnerability of being surrounded by uncertainty made every second stretch to an eternity. "Keep calm. We need to make it to the generator," Cole said, his voice firm, cutting through the tension like a knife. But just as he turned, they heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching. The door swung open slowly, and the outline of a figure emerged against the dim light behind them. It was another shadow in this game of calculated moves, and Sarah felt a chill dart down her spine. "Cole," she whispered, barely able to form the words. "Who is that?" But before Cole could respond, two flashlights flicked on, illuminating their faces and revealing a sinister grin. "Looks like we've found you just in time," taunted the unfamiliar voice, heavy with malice. The encroaching storm didn't just brew outside. It raged within their very walls. What had they unwittingly unleashed? With her heart pounding in her ears, Sarah gripped the edge of the table, every instinct screaming at her to fight or flee. But had she already crossed the point of no return? As the figure advanced into the candlelight, Sarah's mind raced. Who was this new player? And what did they want? The night was no longer just dark. It was a harbinger of chaos, and the true battle was only just beginning. Were they ready to face what lay ahead? The figure stepped forward, the beam of light cutting through the dimness and casting sharp lines on his face. He was tall, dressed in a dark suit that dripped with confidence, arrogance etched into every feature. Sarah could feel her heart hammering, urging her to dart to the door, but her feet felt cemented to the floor. "Who are you?" Cole demanded, his voice steady but edged with a hint of nervousness. The man smiled wider, revealing teeth as white as bone. "You can call me Jake. I hear you've been stirring up a little trouble." He paused, letting the words hang heavy in the air. "Aren't you two just adorable, plotting against the big boys?" Sarah exchanged a glance with Cole. The tension heightened, palpable enough to slice through. "What do you want?" Cole pressed, trying to maintain control over the situation. "I want what you want," Jake replied, casually shrugging as if they were having a friendly chat. "I'm here to help or to make your life a living hell, depending on how cooperative you are." She inhaled sharply, weighing his words. Help? Or was this just another layer of deceit in a game that felt more tangled by the second? "You think you can just waltz in here and intimidate us?" Cole's bravado was starting to show cracks under the pressure. Sarah could hear his fingers drumming against the table, a telltale sign of his anxiety. "Oh, I don't need to intimidate you," Jake said, leaning closer, eyes glimmering. "You're already well aware of how high the stakes are. I'm just here to remind you that there are worse consequences out there than failing." The crack of thunder punctuated his words, a near-simultaneous echo of distress. Sarah's mind raced. What did he know? "We're not afraid of you," she spat, channeling a sudden burst of defiance. But even as she said it, uncertainty clawed at her. Jake held up a hand, silencing the room. But fear is a powerful motivator, isn't it? You don't know what I've seen, the lengths people will go to keep their empire afloat. The stakes aren't just high, they're life and death. There was a cruel glint in his eye as he leaned back. I could show you that, if you're interested. The threat hung in the air, twisting like a knife. Sarah felt the flickering pulse of panic as she fought to gather her thoughts. They were in deeper than they realized, and now, with Jake here, their chances of walking out unscathed had plummeted. Why should we trust you? Cole bit back, trying to regain control of the conversation. Because I have what you need, Jake replied, his tone shifting. I can help you bring down Branson. But you need to be ready to make sacrifices. Are you willing to play my game? Sarah felt the rush of vulnerability wash over her like icy water. Was this the moment it all unraveled? The flashes outside sent stark shadows dancing across the walls, and she was reminded of the storm still raging beyond the glass. She turned to Cole, searching for a flicker of resolve, but all she found was uncertainty mirrored back at her. Sarah, he started, but before he could finish, another loud crash of thunder shook the building, as if the universe was warning them of the peril ahead. Jake chuckled softly at their hesitance, a soothing sound laced with malice. You're running out of time. Will you step into the darkness with me, or will you let it swallow you whole? The shadows leaned in, and Sarah felt the weight of the moment press down on her chest. The choice loomed before them, a precipice of danger and potential. What will it be? Jake asked, his voice dark and enticing. In that split second, everything hinged on their next move. Could they trust him? And if they did, what would it cost them? The candle flickered wildly as the wind howled outside, drowning out her thoughts. She could feel destiny tightening around her like a noose, each moment laced with urgency. As uncertainty seeped deeper, a deafening crash resounded this time from the window. Something shattered in the storm, adding chaos to their already precarious world. Was this the end of their quest, or the beginning of something far more dangerous? The door they had entered through burst open this time, with an official figure stepping in, drenched and out of breath. They're coming, he shouted, eyes wide with terror. Sarah's heart raced. The storm had unleashed chaos beyond their understanding. Would they stand together, or would they be swept away? The official's frantic warning hung in the air like a dark cloud. The name Branson stirred a flurry of emotions in Sarah's gut: fear, anger, and an unsettling sense of urgency. She felt as if the room was compressing, the weight of their decision turning their hearts into lead. They're coming for us, the drenched man said again, breathing heavily, knuckles white on the doorknob. His voice trembled with dread, each word a hammer striking against the fabric of their resolve. Who is coming? Cole managed to ask, his bravado quickly evanescing, slipping into genuine concern. The enforcers. I thought I'd buy us some time, but I don't know how long they'll be delayed. His eyes darted to Jake and then back to Sarah and Cole, urgency coursing through him like a live wire. Enforcers, Sarah whispered, realization slamming into her like a freight train. The people who worked for Branson were ruthless, always ready to err on the side of violence to keep secrets buried. Jake leaned against the wall, an unsettling calmness washing over him. See? You're not the only ones in danger, are you? He threw Sarah a knowing look, a flash of delight mingled with malice. But I can protect you. I can give you the power to fight back. We don't trust you, Cole snapped, protective instincts kicking back in. But the tendrils of fear were already creeping into his voice. Why should you? Jake shrugged, a mischievous air swirling around him. But let us be honest here, what do you have to lose? I could save you from them, but only if you're willing to play my game. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest. What type of deal was he offering? There was a thin line between salvation and betrayal, and Jake was standing right on the edge, tempting them both to cross over. Enough. The stranger's voice cut across their deliberation, but it was laced with a gruesome intent. We can't waste time sifting through your trust issues. If he is telling the truth, we need to act fast. That storm isn't the only thing threatening our lives right now. The tension in the room escalated, twisting tighter as each second stretched. Sarah could hear her heartbeat in her ears, the rising crescendo of panic mingling with the distant roar of the storm outside. She shot a look at Cole, desperation mingling with uncertainty. We need to make a decision. Now. Your call, Sarah. Cole's gaze widened, his voice betraying an unusual resolve. You've always been the one who has driven this fight. What are you going to do? Jake's eyes flickered with anticipation, watching, waiting. The shadows in the corner of the room seemed to lean in, as if they hungered for her choice. Sarah began hesitantly, but a sudden crash from the direction of the entrance sent chills racing down her spine. Glass shattered, followed by heavy boots pounding across the floor. They're here. The official yelled, panic clawing at his throat. In that instant, dread washed over Sarah like ice water, freezing every thought. She could hear their voices, harsh and demanding, cutting through the chaos. The enforcers were not just a rumor, they were here, and they meant business. Choose, Jake urged, his voice cutting through the fray like a knife. Help is fleeting. Will you stand tall or cower? Sarah's stomach churned, muscles tight as she faced the impending doom creeping closer. She found her voice, despite the terror swirling in her mind. We have to trust someone. We have to, but before she could finish, the door burst wide open, and in stormed a hulking figure, eyes glinting like shards of ice. Where are they? The room fell silent, the air thickening with fear. Party's over, he sneered, taking a step forward, menacing and relentless. Sarah's breath caught, and she felt the walls closing in. They had to act, and fast. As the tension reached a breaking point, she caught Jake's gaze, a flicker of resolve buried deep under layers of danger. Now, Jake shouted, his excitement breaking the paralysis. Make your choice. In that moment of chaos and uncertainty, destiny swung on a fragile thread, and Sarah found herself teetering on the brink. Could they fight? Or would they be ensnared in Branson's web, trapped and powerless? What lay ahead was a haunting question. Could anyone truly pull them back from the edge? Or were they destined to plunge into the darkness together, lost forever? The atmosphere felt electric, charged with fear and desperation. The enforcer, towering and menacing, advanced into the dim light. Sarah's heart raced as she exchanged a glance with Cole, her throat tight with apprehension. But fear was spiraling into determination. This was their moment to act. Jake, Sarah yelled abruptly, her voice cutting through the chaos. Yes. He smirked, but it was a hungry, predatory smile. Show us you can help us as you promised. We need to fight back. It was a gamble. The stakes had never been higher. The enforcer paused, his eyes narrowing. Jake's grin widened. Good choice. In an instant, the tense air shattered as Jake motioned swiftly, and two of his people spilled into the room behind the enforcer, forcing him to reassess. Chaos erupted, words turned into shouts, movements blurred before Sarah could catch her breath. She watched as Cole tightly gripped a nearby garbage bin, swinging it fast at the enforcer's legs. The hulking figure stumbled, but fury ignited in his eyes. Get them. He roared, lunging forward. Jake moved in fluid motions, ushering Sarah and Cole away, melding their dynamic into the chaos. Now's our chance, he shouted, pulling them further into the room. Cole clutched Sarah's wrist, urgency fueling his grip. As they maneuvered around tables, firing questions at Jake, clamoring for direction, a singular thought burned in Sarah's mind. They were in. This was their moment to take control. Keep moving, Jake shouted, leading them toward a back exit. We'll make it out, but we need to act fast before they regroup. The clash of bodies and shouts filled the air, echoing like a thunderstorm outside. With adrenaline pumping, Sarah knew they were fighting not just against Branson's men, but for their very lives and futures. Every decision mattered, and every second counted. I've got a plan, Jake yelled over the noise. We either strike their supply chain now, or they bury us under a tarnished reputation. Outside, the rain lashed aggressively, thunder rumbling overhead as they spilled into the stormy night. The slick pavement glistened, and Sarah let the cold air slice through her burning urgency. What do we do? She asked, mind racing. I'll distract them, then you two hit the logistics hub. Jake's eyes were ablaze, fiercely determined. Cole nodded, but Sarah hesitated. You're putting yourself at risk. It's part of the game, Sarah. Trust me. It's all or nothing. Jake spun around, fixing her with a fierce glared eye. In that moment, clarity washed over her. They had to fight for every piece of their future. Okay, we'll do it, she said, drawing in a steadying breath. Let us go, Jake shouted, sprinting towards a side alley where they could make a plan to intercept the supply coordinates. Cole and Sarah followed closely behind, hearts racing in sync with their quickened steps as they reached a secluded area away from prying eyes. The rain pelted down. We need numbers. Allies, Sarah exclaimed, brain spinning with possibilities. Just the two of us, one T cut it. Cole agreed, eyes scanning the surroundings. Jake smirked, I've got a few contacts. Dangerous, so you're sure you're willing to risk it? More than anything. Sarah's voice trembled with resolve. A wild spark of excitement flared in Jake's eyes as he began to relay information. He laid out names, numbers, connections that delivered a path forward, but shadows danced in Sarah's mind. Would they truly be allies or just another layer of danger added to their already tense narrative? In a huddle, they mapped plans swiftly, deciding how to dismantle Branson's scheme one piece at a time, like a well-oiled machine, yet charged with raw human apprehension. Then the whispers became frantic calls. Get ready, Jake urged, adrenaline thrumming in the rain-soaked night. As they headed toward the logistics hub, shadows loomed, swift steps behind them. Here we go, Cole whispered, a sharp edge of anxiety threading his voice. The air was thick with anticipation as they peeked around the corner, surveying the fortified area bustling with activity. Let us stake our claim. Jake's whisper hitched with enthusiasm. As they surged forward, an explosion rocked through their resolve, tearing the darkness apart with blinding light as doors burst open ahead. Hands where I can see them, bellowed several enforcers, fierce with intent. We're cornered. Sarah gasped. Their plan felt brittle, moments stretching taut like a wire on the edge of snapping. Not if we divide and conquer. Jake barked, swiftly splitting their group in two, gesturing for Sarah and Cole to take the left side. They darted away, adrenaline igniting in every cell, hearts pounding in sync as they ducked behind crates and barrels. Every second felt stretched, compressed. Cole clenched his fists, fear flashing across his face, but determination burned brighter. This is ours to lose or claim. Each move they made was calculated, glancing through openings, waiting for Jake's lead. Collective breaths were held tightly as they disrupted their systems, dismantling year-long efforts in just hours, revealing Branson's weak points to the world. Through their movements, Sarah found clarity. It was no longer just about Branson, but their fight against fear in the storm that had raged for so long. The chaos felt liberating, their small acts pulling threads of power over a behemoth, revealing weakness hidden in plain sight. In that decisive moment, everything the three of them had battled for began to reshape the field of corporate power dynamics. With renewed fervor, they fell back into the shadows, fortified with information. They understood the stakes. They were not just fighting for their own survival but for others like them. Desperate to rise above they moved into the night, storms still swirling around them. Hope surged in Sarah's heart. We can do this, she muttered, conviction underscoring her voice like a battle cry. This battle may not end in a single victory, but each strategic step took them closer to reclaiming not just their lives but their place in the skies. And amid the chaos, they pressed on, ready to face whatever came next, fueled by the belief that they could win against the odds and the sense that no matter how dark the night, dawn would eventually break. As they crossed into a new realm of their fractured fight, bound by defiance and fierce purpose, they prepared to unveil the secrets the night held, ready to change the course of their story forever. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. Together, they dared to dream of victory against the storm. You need to subscribe now if you want to catch the next chapter in this evolving saga, because things are only heating up. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow our amazing community. Your reactions and theories are what drives this channel, so flood that comment section with your thoughts and let us connect. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Every share makes a world of difference. Join the movement.